All right. What do you think? Ready to go, ladies?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Well, welcome to today's training on protocol. I am Christine Citrano. I am the National Liaison for the Western region, and I am joined by Sabrina Brown, National Liaison to the Central region, and Carolyn Altman, National Liaison to the Eastern region. And we are really glad to have you guys with us today. So let's talk about protocol. What is it and why is it necessary? Protocols are basic ground rules that help guide what is expected of the group during the meeting or event in order to help the meeting or event run effectively. It's important that these rules are discussed and shared with your team and organization so everyone is on the same page. Some things that are essential to remember include come prepared. It goes without saying that a ground rule you should have in place for your team to follow is to come prepared for every meeting. Show up on time. Be present. Put those phones away, ladies and gentlemen. Start on a positive note. Follow the agenda. Create an inclusive environment. Remember, everyone has a seat at the table. Be solution focused, particularly for governing board meetings. No committee work. Always assume a positive intent. Now, I'd like to add that we have a beautiful PowerPoint presentation here, and we have a lot of side notes that we will be talking about, although not in detail. However, this presentation will be made available to you on our streaming TV channel, and it is in the chat room what that channel is. And as soon as the presentation is over, we will be able to upload that for you to download and have with you. And Sabrina, I think you are next.
Yes, thank you so much. Okay, I get the fun stuff. So I always get the fun stuff. So that's what I like. So I'm gonna let them get into the nitty gritty, but I'm gonna set you up for when you first start the meeting. So let's start from the very, very beginning. Dress code. Hello. Now, dress code. You want to make sure that we are always business casual unless it's a special event that we're going out on a boat ride or something fun like that. But otherwise, if it's a business meeting or a governing board meeting, you want to come business casual or just business attire, period. You don't want to come in jeans. You don't want to come in leggings. You want to look like the realtor or the lender or the strategic partner that you want to give business to. So make sure that you always come dressed for success. Just a little side note, podium versus lectern. I actually learned this doing this presentation because honestly, I didn't know the difference. A podium is a stage that you stand on or sit at, and a lectern is where you actually have your notes and it's you stand at it and not on it. Now, if you do stand on the lectern, you might fall off. So don't stand on the lectern, stand on the podium. That is important. Podium versus lectern. Just a little side note for you what the difference is. Because if you're setting up at a hotel, you're going to want to know, they're going to ask you, do you want a podium or do you want a lectern? And you need to know the difference. That's why. If you're displaying banners near their lectern, they should be displayed to the left of the speaker, the opposite side of the flag. And make sure when you're purchasing these banners that you purchase sturdy banners. First impressions are everything. So sometimes when you go to events and you see the banners leaning over, that means that the stand that they have purchased does not support the weight of that banner. So spend a little extra money and make sure that your banners are professional and standing up straight. A lot of times you have your strategic partners on there, and we want to make sure that we're displaying them in the manner that they should be. Didn't I tell you guys I had all the fun stuff? So, technology. This is my favorite. It could be like your best friend or your worst enemy. You want to make sure that you test your equipment at least an hour before the presentation especially if it's equipment you've never used before. Now let's play devil's advocate. The technology just fails, and that all happens all the time. You need to make sure that you have a backup plan. What's a backup plan? That means that maybe you've printed out, if it's a PowerPoint presentation, that it's printed out and you have that accessible for everyone that's attending the meeting. That way they can also take notes on that. And if the equipment does go down, they can follow your presentation without having technology there. I don't even know how we survive without technology. The other thing you want to be prepared for is if you have a presenter that does not show up, you need to have a plan B for that as well. And that could be a strategic partner that can step in at a minute's notice. Always have a plan B at your meetings. This is crucial. You never want to cancel the meeting. You just want to have a plan B and keep moving forward. Now, here's my favorite, the mic. So let's not be afraid of the microphone. We need to be comfortable when we're at the mic. And one of those things that we want to do is make sure that we hold it correctly so that we're not getting that feedback, that they can't hear us breathing. And then some of the key points, remember the mic is always on. The mic is hot. So make sure you're not whispering under your breath. You're not talking to the person next to you. Just assume that whatever you're saying, other people can hear you. The other thing is, do not tap the mic. Do not tap it. That is irritating. Do not blow on it. That's like nails on the chalkboard to most people. So make sure that you are using the mic correctly. You want to make sure that everybody can hear you. Test that out beforehand as well. And then if you do have like a mic drop moment, do not physically drop the mic. We can't afford to be replacing those mics. So make sure if you have a mic drop moment, do not physically drop the mic. So here we go. Now, if you're having a governing boards meeting, you want to make sure that you are following the Roberts Rules of Order, and we'll go through that, and you will have all of that information in these slides that will be sent out to you. You'll receive a copy of the Roberts Rules as well. But some of the important things to remember is the reading and approval of minutes. And then also when the agenda comes out, the agenda is not approved until the board approves the agenda. So make sure you do that. That's probably one of the most important things to remember once the meeting gets started. And if you happen to be giving committee reports, there is a protocol on how to do that. So when giving your committee reports, you want to make sure that you give your name and that you have a greeting in place. And the greeting is, let me read this. Good morning, good afternoon, Madam President, line officers, governing board, and members. You want to make sure that you have your greeting. You just don't step up to the mic and start giving your report. The protocol is to give a greeting. That is on Zoom and also if you're in person. And then if there is a national officer there as well, you want to acknowledge them as well. Now, the agenda, as we talked about, you want to make sure that you're following the agenda. The president usually presents that draft agenda, and it must be adopted and binded by the group. My phone's ringing, sorry. It is always recommended that you appoint a parliamentarian over your governing board meetings. And that is important because that way you don't get squirreled. You know how we'll get off track, and our governing board meetings should not be running over because we are not following the agenda. Some other important things that you want to do as you're following the agenda is your flag. You're going to have the flag salute. You want to make sure that the flag is displayed correctly. When displayed either horizontally or vertically against the wall, the union should be upmost to the flag's own right. So you want to make sure that you have the flag in the right position. And you want to make sure that you always acknowledge any veterans that you have in the audience. Please remember to thank them for their service, ask them to rise, and acknowledge them. That is important. They've given so much for us. We need to make sure that we acknowledge them. When displaying the flag near a podium or lectern, it is placed in a stand and should be either behind or slightly in front or to the side of the speaker. The flag should always be to the right of the speaker as he or she faces the audience. Flag placement is important. And in a pinch, if you do not have a physical flag there, you can use an electronic flag. You can pull that up. We have some websites you can pull that up from, or you can find them on the internet. But make sure that you have a flag present. That is important. That is acknowledging our veterans. That is just paying respect. And we should always have a flag when we're doing the flag salute, whether it's a physical flag or a virtual flag. Have a flag in place when you're doing the flag salute. The other piece of the agenda that is important is your inspiration. You can have an invocation versus inspiration. You want to have an inspiration. You want to have someone come in and get the crowd pumped up for you. They should be inspiring. They should be uplifting. It should be something that kicks the meeting off on the right tone. And so make sure that you're having an inspiration. Inspirations inspire, invocations invoke people, inspirations inspire. Always be inspiring. And next, we're going to talk about how we address the dignitaries at those meetings. And I am going to let Carolyn take over because this was not the fun part for me. So Carolyn gets to do this.
Yeah, I was glad you let everyone.
I let her do the set. I
You
get
took the fun parts. Yes.
I get the fun parts all the time.
But she's our technology guru in the background. She made this fabulous presentation for us all. So welcoming the dignitaries and the guests. One person should be designated to make sure that all the dignitaries for the event are properly recorded, along with their positions and their year or years of service. A phonetic spelling of the name in parentheses should be included if necessary for proper pronunciation. When making the introductions, always start with the oldest ranking member and proceed to the newest. An example would be you start with the past president of 2001 and then end up with the president 2022. Introduce each member and not as a collective group. Remember always the past to the present and associations to Women's Council. If you have a dignitary with several past titles, please introduce them as one introduction. An example would be Betty Smith is with us today. She is a 2000 Florida State President and a 2007 Women's Council National President. Do not announce a position unless they are present. Please do not feel bad if you do not recognize someone that arrives late or did not register. Again, use common sense. This is an example of all types of dignitaries to help you with this line. And again, don't worry about it. You're going to receive a copy of all of this. Now let's talk about the head table. The head table goes by a few simple rules. When seating people, you sit from the outside in, the lowest ranking to the highest ranking. The guest of honor, or the most important person, is the person that's going to be to the right of the host. The second most important person is going to be to the left of the host. Introductions are done in the same way, from the outside to the inside, from the lowest to the highest. You can see why Sabrina took the others. So strategic partners, state and local. Our strategic partners are very important to our organization, and they should be treated that way. Here are some guidelines for each of your meetings. They need to be introduced and acknowledged at each and every meeting. All printed materials should include the state and local strategic partners. Each network website should include the state and local strategic partners. It is very important that you pronounce each correctly, practice when necessary, and place the phonetic spelling next to those that you have trouble with. If you're unsure, ask them. They will appreciate it and they will help you. They know that their name is a little quirky and they already know the special ways to help other people speak them correctly. It is important to explain to the members just how important our strategic partners are. It is our goal to grow their business and to grow our business. So use them whenever you have the opportunity to do so. Guest speaker introductions. Many of our guests have extensive resumes or introduction bios they use. Please inquire with them if they want you to read the entire piece or if you can highlight their accomplishments. Here is just a couple of guidelines for introducing your guest speaker. And again, there's going to be more in your documentation that you're going to receive. Let your audience know why the topic is important to them. Use an upbeat tone to get the presentation off. Make your speaker feel welcomed. Know the speaker's name, again, how to pronounce it correctly. You should know their position or their title. And remember, your introduction should be brief. Don't read the introduction as it's going to sound very uninviting and flat. And don't use slides or overhead presentations for these introductions. Panel discussions, they're basically the same. First, introduce the structure of the panel and the format, which would include the speaker order and the speaking time along with their viewpoint. You may introduce each briefly in the beginning or introduce them as their speaking turn begins. And with this, I'm going to go back to Christine.
All right, I am now unmuted. Great information. I know it's a lot to take in, but again, this entire presentation is going to be made available to you. So just kind of let it wash over you and take it all into consideration when you are planning events and meetings going forward. So when you have a dignitary attending, particularly in person, there are several things that you will want to be mindful about. The first suggestion is that you task someone in your network to act as the dignitary's liaison. This is an excellent opportunity to let them shine and feel included. Now, here are some items that the liaison will need to remember. Our national leadership team is available to attend your events, either in person or virtually. The invitation is available on the national website, but keep in mind that all invitations must be made a minimum of 30 days prior to the event. So what is a dignitary? A person who is considered to be important because of their high rank or honor. For example, National Women's Council of Realtors President, National or State Line Officers, National Association of Realtors President or Line Officers, National CEO of either Women's Council of Realtors or the National Association of Realtors. These would all be considered dignitaries. How to prepare. When a dignitary is scheduled, it is likely that they will be the only speaker for the day to really highlight the importance of the position that they hold. Somebody is unmuted. You should make sure that you have their bio and photo sent from their office in advance so they can be placed on materials for the event. That person is a celebrity to many of us. Here are some quick ideas for the liaison of what to do when you have a dignitary attending your events in person. And I think this slide has some pop-ups. There we go. As the liaison, you should send an introductory email, letting them know who you are and how you're going to be assisting them. As the liaison, okay, we covered that one. Okay, you're going to want to know when you're going to want to let them know when you're going to pick them up, what kind of car you drive, or if you're coming via Uber or something of that notice, so that they have notification of where to look for you. You're going to need to know their arrival time, airline, air flight number, airport, obviously, and also their departure information, so that you may have to shuttle them back to the airport. Remember, these guys are celebrities. Hotel accommodations, what is their preference? Do they like to be on a high floor or low floor? Do they want to be near the elevator or the ice machine, or as far away as possible? What's their pillow preference? I know these all sound silly, but let's face it, guys, we all want to sleep well when we're in our hotels. So these are important. And also, what are some of their favorite snacks and beverages that you can already have in the room prior to them being there? Tell them the hotel they will be staying at, including the hotel address, just in case for whatever reason you are unable to pick them up. Be at the hotel to welcome your guest if you did not have the chance to pick them up. You do not want them to be walking around with a deer in the headlights kind of look on their face, not knowing where to go or what to do. It's your job as the liaison for your network, whether it's local or state, to be the host. You can book the hotel for the dignitary and use their information and the fact that the network will be handling the bill. They may still require an ID from the dignitary when they do arrive. The small details are important. Some small details can make a big impression and a big difference. So remember, again, you are the host, and as such, it is your job to make your guests feel welcome. Have a welcome basket in their room. Again, this is where you can put in any kind of beverages or snack food preferences that they may have. It really makes them feel good when they walk in and they see all this great stuff. Maybe you can have some strategic partners help you filling that basket. Maybe you might want to consider giving them something that is special to your state or your area. I remember years ago when Cindy Reddy as national president came to visit, and as we all know, Cindy loves her chocolate. And so we were able to provide her with a couple of different chocolate samples from Florida only chocolatiers. And I know she loved them. So have them in the room prior to their arrival. Accompany the dignitary to their room and give them a brief overview of the schedule for the events. Now, they may say to you, I'm fine, I've got it. I don't need you to walk me around to everything, but you still want to make that gesture. And if they do need you, because some of these hotels that we stay in are gargantuan and you can easily get lost. So as the dignitary, as the liaison dignitary, you want to make sure that you are there to make their stay as easy and carefree as possible. Has the network planned anything for the night, for dinner, maybe the night before the event? Inform them of that schedule also. Make sure that you take your dignitary out to dinner or lunch or provide them with breakfast. Don't let them wander on their own unless that is what they choose to do. You want to be able to include them. And if there are pockets of time where you don't really have something specifically scheduled with the dignitary, hook them up with something. What an amazing opportunity to get your local networks together one-on-one with your state president or your national president. Who would not love that? There's usually a governing board dinner arranged, but check with the dignitary if they would like to have to accompany them. The network should pay for all of the incurred costs for the dignitary, and you need to know, will they need a ride to the event? And if so, coordinate pickup time for that day. You should remain with them at all times, again, unless they say they're fine, introducing them to line officers, other members, and affiliate and strategic partners. The dignitary is seated with the president of the network unless they have a preference to be seated with someone else. Make them comfortable. So in other words, if you are and your governing board are sitting on at a podium or a dais, you want to make sure that the national president, or that dignitary rather, is sitting up there as well, unless they prefer not to. Okay. Is that it? Now we're on questions and answers.
Yep, I have on here, this is our successful meetings. And basically, when you follow protocols, you will have a successful meeting. You'll have happy strategic partners. You'll have happy members, and you'll have happy dignitaries because you followed all the protocols. And now we are going to go to questions.
Yeah, and you know, before we take any questions, I just want to point out, and Charmaine Hickey, thank you so much, Charmaine Hickey, who's president-elect for Florida. She says here that with regard to the protocol, this is true whether it's national officers who are coming to visit you, or if it is your state officers that are coming to your local networks. The treatment is going to be the same. Okay, questions? Anybody have a question? Feel free to unmute yourself.
Let's stop share, and that way we can see everybody.
No questions? Renee's
I'm like,
waving.
wait a minute. No
Renee,
questions.
it's Renee, okay?
Okay,
It's Renee, okay, from the car. I just want to say congratulations, ladies. This is very informative. And I think as we're reopening, so many people and leadership on the local level, they haven't even been exposed to this, so they didn't know. And we're trying to encourage them what to expect for live events again. You guys have just done a fantastic job, and I can't wait to get the recording and the material. So thank you so much. Appreciate it so much.
thank you, Renee. Kay, did you have a question?
Yeah,
I saw
my
your hand
question
up.
is, I agree with Renee. This is fantastic, really good reference material for all of us, including our networks. So I wanted to clarify on, so at state meetings, for instance, we have a stage where the officers sit. So when a national officer is there, I just want to say, so we have two sides of the podium. So what's the suggestion of having where the national officer should sit? I know that they should sit next to the president, but I'm just trying to envision the seating arrangement.
Well, they don't necessarily have to sit next to the president. They can, generally speaking, the president of the network, that whether it be state or local, is going to be closest to the mic, correct? And then
Right.
usually the officers are then in order as they are as officers, president, president-elect, et cetera, et cetera. You can have the national officers sit at the end of that entire row. But you definitely want to invite them up onto the stage. You definitely want them sitting up there. And if you are lucky to be graced with more than one, it's going to be a tight squeeze, but everybody usually has a good time. So by all means, invite them up.
All right, great. Thank you. Great job,
You're welcome.
ladies.
Is this great information going to be shared with local networks too?
Yes.
You can certainly pass the information on to the local networks. We hadn't really discussed that. I don't see why it couldn't be.
I think it's important for the local.
I agree. I think this is important to share with them. I know for a fact that a lot of them have no idea how to introduce dignitaries, or don't even think about it, you know?
Yeah.
And I keep telling all our networks, you know, you guys, you got to introduce the important people that walk in the door. You know, you can't just not introduce them. You can't say, you know, in Michigan, we have Brenda Lee, and Brenda Lee comes to everything, and, you know, people kind of take it for granted, but you got to say she was a national president at some point. So I think all of this information, even how to have a meeting and how to dress, the dress code these days, the way I see them go to governing board meetings in their ripped up jeans, that's not business casual. That's not anything. That's casual.
Yeah, Chris, I think that's why this is very important for the local networks, because we're just coming out of a pandemic. And if you think about it, a lot of our new leaders, our local leaders, have never had to put on a live event. So they've all been on Zoom. And so we're lucky they don't come in pajamas. So,
I was gonna say that, yeah.
the ripped
They're
jeans
little
are okay.
onesies.
But just having this, just even like where the flag is to be placed, where the banners are to be placed, just introducing the dignitaries You know, all of those things are learned skills, and that's what we're here for, is to make sure that we're building leaders, and that's part of the leadership journey, is showing them how to conduct a successful meeting or event. And when they've been on Zoom for 2 years, they haven't had that experience. And so I think this is crucial for all of them, just the steps and guidelines to help them be more successful and, you know, help them on their leadership journey.
Yeah, I think a good way for us to do this is like what we're doing now, bits and pieces. Like we do a monthly boot camp that we will take a piece of what you have just presented and relate that to the presidents-elect. And then when we have our general summit, this is important information that we have to share.
Mhm.
Because you don't know what you don't know. And I'm so happy you guys did this, because it is so important for you to do the coordination of having a liaison available for the president.
Yes.
Just my piece.
Yeah, and as the and this is particularly true when you are whether you are a local president or a state president, when you're putting an event on, we all who've been in those roles know how many different bits and pieces there are to kind of be responsible for. And so to know that you have provided your traveling dignitary with the opportunity to be taken care of, and you've chosen somebody who you know can handle that job, and therefore you don't have to worry about that anymore. You can focus on the other things that you need to do. It makes everything flow much more smoothly, quite frankly. But again, this presentation is going to be available on our streaming network channel. Jeff did put in the chat box at the beginning, but I'll repeat it here. It's stream.wcr.org. And we'll also see about how we can get the PowerPoint presentation out to not only the state networks, but the local networks as well. I'm sure their national will be able to help us with that. So we'll make sure that we get that all out to you guys. Any other questions?
Yeah, we have Desda. Desda has her hand raised.
Okay.
Hi, it's Desda Finn from Washington State. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
I wondered if you could clarify when you're speaking about left or right on the stage, is that always when you're on the stage looking at the audience?
That is
Yes.
correct.
Okay. Okay, perfect. That was just what I wasn't clear about. Thank you.
Yeah, it would be your right and left, not the audience's right and left.
It's not stage right, stage left.
Yeah. Just to confuse you a little bit. Just to confuse you.
Yes.
Good question.
Helpful.
Good question.
Thank you.
Good question. Thank you. You guys have any other questions? You guys must know it all. So now we're going to send out the quiz.
We have Alma.
Make sure that-
Alma has her question. Alma.
Okay.
Sorry, Sabrina.
Yeah.
But thanks for telling us there's a quiz. I just wanted to say, ladies, I've seen different protocol presentations, and I have to just say, you did such a fabulous job. It was complete, it was concise, clear to follow, and just easy to follow. So I think what it does is it sets that example for excellence in what we do. And I absolutely think this would be a great presentation to share with our boards. So thank you. I know a lot of work went into it, and thank you, Sabrina, for the presentation, because you made it really easy to follow. So I'm glad that we're going to have that. So thank you, Carol, and thank you, Christine, as well. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
You guys are quiet.
Okay, it looks like that's a wrap up then.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Oh, I heard a voice.
It's Renee from the car again. I just wanted to let you know that in California, we do have a lot of our local presidents on this call today because we shared it with them. So
Good.
we're excited that they are here present. So thank you again. kind of have demonstrations. So something to think about, perhaps to consider as a session.
We actually spoke with Jeff about that before we came to this meeting, that we felt like this should be a session. Yes.
Well, guys, you guys are quiet. That was quick and easy and painless. I hope it was painless. And I know it was quick and hopefully informational. And once you guys get the slides, I hope you'll be able to use it and share with your local networks. And, just, I think it's just great information for everybody to have and something to refer back to once you're starting your live meetings again. Well, a lot of you guys are live. We were very restrictive in California, but once you're back into your live meetings, I think all of these things will come into play and are a great resource for everyone. So thank you.
Yeah, and the other thing I would add is that you don't know what you don't know, and this is everything that has to do with leadership is a learning process, including protocol, including, as Sabrina just learned with this, putting this presentation together, the subtle difference between a podium and a lectern. And I hear people use those two words interchangeably, and I always chuckle to myself. But I do remember when I first joined Women's Council, somebody being very adamant about the difference. And so it never left me. But, we always have room to learn new things. So don't feel embarrassed at all that there are things covered here that you had no idea about. It's all good. It's all good. We're all learning every single day. And if that's everything, then I think we're done.
And you know what? We finished an
Okay.
extra 15 minutes early. So don't tell National that we finished 15 minutes early. And we're going to give you 15 minutes back of your day. So thank you so much for joining.
There you go.
We appreciate it.
There we go.
Efficiency
Thank